was just like being able to leave early because so like everybody else was out of 45 and we get out till 3:30. And we started saying like everybody else.
How much that can be fixed
Yeah.
or rectified. And what we want with them.
Linda? There you are. I was getting worried. I couldn't see you, couldn't see you.
I know. It's kind of panicky, isn't it, when that happens? Shall I leave my mic on for a little while?
Hey, June.
Hi, Kathy.
Hey, Linda.
Do
I
you?
had emailed Deborah about starting a little early so we could check to make sure we can share screens.
Mm-hmm.
There she is.
There she is. Very good.
Do you guys need me? I'll bet you need. I didn't realize I was interfering with your planning.
You're not interfering.
No. You're fine. You're fine.
So in fact, you better hang around because you're my crutch. You're my crutch.
We'll figure it out together.
Yeah, I told June I can't chew gum and walk, and so that's why you're doing this.
She said
You don't expect me. You don't expect me to be able to do that, do you? Oh no.
Yes, I do. An old English teacher would tell you, spit out your gum before you come to the meeting.
So Tracy is hosting. So Tracy is here.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you.
No problem. So who do I need to give the hosting to so that they can share their screen?
That's Deborah Fisher.
Deborah Fisher?
Yep, I'm getting loaded up here. Let's see.
Hi, Deborah.
Hey, how are you? I can get this.
Welcome.
Glad to do it.
Well, I got an email from Linda Lee saying she wasn't able to register. Have you heard from anybody else who's had difficulties?
I saw Bridget yesterday. I was in the library and she was taking pictures with the suffragette display. And she told me that there had been 48 registrants, but she was going to leave it open longer.
Good.
So
Good.
that
Good.
In case anyone else wanted to join. But I haven't heard from anyone else, but that,
Well, I sent Linda my Zoom link. We'll see.
Yeah, and Bridget sent it out to all of us. Did she know to look for Bridget's email?
I don't know. I also got an email from Cheryl next door saying she didn't get the Zoom link, which I sent her mine. I don't know what happened there either. She said she registered.
Well, I was thinking that Bridget was simply sending out the Zoom invitation to everyone who was on the registration list. So did they register?
I don't know. Didn't get that far in the conversation.
Yeah, right.
There was a limit on the registration screen of like 36. So if we have 48 registered, some people maybe were turned away or something.
Well, Bridget said that she kept opening it.
Yeah. Bridget said that wouldn't be a problem. She would just keep letting.
She would keep opening it.
Okay, good.
So I think she was going to keep it open until this morning. Yesterday, she was going to leave it open until this morning, but that means she has to keep resending invitations out as people register. So I think I'll be quiet. Deborah, I think, did you need to test out your?
Yeah, let me just share my screen real quick while nobody's on, and let's see what happens here. Let's see.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay. I'll stop sharing. All right. Yay.
Deborah, do you have a particular preference in how I address you as our guest speaker today? Do you like Ms. Fisher? Do you prefer Deb? Do you Deborah? What's your preferred?
Deborah is probably fine, or some people say Deb, but Deborah is fine.
Whatever you like.
Yeah, that's probably better than Miss Fisher, I think.
Okay, okay. You do look awfully young.
Well, thank you. I will not share my age.
We aren't going to add up all of these years of experience we have on the
No,
screen right
no.
now, because we would like lap you 2 or 3 times, I think.
Oh yeah. So hey, is this like the so this is a new chapter, right? Okay,
Right.
good. So
Absolutely.
when was it officially started this summer or?
Yes, this is our second meeting. Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we're excited that you're here.
Yeah, so I live in Brentwood, so this would be my chapter if I have
You
been
need to
a member.
join.
Yeah, I have been a member, but I've always been attached to Nashville. So
Mhm. Yes, we are still attached through Nashville. You'll have to join through the Nashville League of Women Voters, but within a year, we'll have our own chapter.
cool. So
Yeah.
how many people do you have? Do you?
I don't have the number in front of me.
But it's
We're having a good turnout. We had 46 at our first Zoom. Next month, we're having Chad Gray, the Williamson County Election Commissioner, and I am expecting
wow.
to be well attended. So
That
we're
is-
doing really well.
Yes, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, no, that's good. I've thought that there are a lot of women in Williamson County who, I mean, I love the Nashville stuff, but you'd have to drive to Nashville. And it also
Yeah.
doesn't do the local, sometimes they'll get into Nashville politics, which I'm interested in, but you don't, know as much about your, it's a good avenue to learn about what's going on in your neighborhood.
That's right.
Deborah, do you mind my asking you what district you live in for our state legislators?
Well, let's see, the district number is, it's Ogles is my state rep.
Okay, okay, mine
And
too.
my
Okay.
senator is, I think, Jack Johnson, so maybe that's everybody's.
Yeah,
but-
that's me. Yeah, he's 20, Jack's 23 and Ogles is 61. So welcome.
Okay, so you're in 61?
I'm in both of those. Yeah. yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So
Yeah.
good to know. Just kind of checking for future reference.
yeah, yeah.
Great.
Sometimes I don't remember the numbers, but I know who they are.
Yeah, me too. Hi, Angie. Hi, Peg.
Hi,
Hi, Angie. Good to see you.
good to be here.
How you doing?
Okay,
Okay.
okay, yeah.
Things are
Doing-
getting better and you're improving and
Slowly.
slowly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be checking on you, to make sure
Thank you.
you're
I need
being-
checking on.
Hi, Bev.
Tracy, can you tell if Debbie Gould is on?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I just wanted to ask her a question. Okay. Oh, great. Everybody check their chat box. Yes. Yes. I will send all that information out in the follow-up email after this, so they'll have it directly in an email too.
That's good. June, I'm going to mute myself at this point and
Okay.
you holler at me if you need.
Okay.
Do you guys want to, do you want to make a note on the chat about the question, if they have any questions, they need to come to me? Or you
gonna
just want
say
to do that
that.
verbally? Okay,
I'm going to say it verbally.
okay. I hear somebody's clock ticking. It's not a bomb, is it?
It's
June.
directly behind mine.
Yeah.
I'll move it.
June, are you going to ask people to do that when you open your remarks, or did you want me to ask them to send those questions to Kathy? Are you going to do that? Because I'm going to cross it off.
Yeah, I'm going to say all that.
You will. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Here's the chat box. I'm not seeing it. Usually there's a place over on the right.
Are you on a computer or an iPad, Bev?
Computer.
Look down at the bottom of the screen, Beverly.
Okay.
If you hold your cursor down at the bottom,
You have to click on that for it to show up.
yeah, the links will show up, and chat is one of them with a little bubble.
So do I open that and leave it open the whole time?
I'm going to leave mine open because I'm going to be looking at the questions that come in, but
Okay.
it doesn't take up much of the screen. In mine, it's just over to the right.
It usually was over here, but they've changed it. Or maybe Ralph sets it up that way.
Yeah.
I see. Okay,
Do that.
I got it.
There's Miss Barbara. She's in the Aurora. Hey, that's gorgeous.
Hello.
You were at the beach last week?
I know, I just move around.
Ooh. Ooh.
When we all get on, let's sing God Bless America, shall we? Like they did at the convention, or the Star Spangled Banner. That was really cool.
Ethel,
Hello.
I just wanted to say hello because it's been a while since you sat down and helped us get all of this going. And I wanted to say thanks, and it's delightful to see you again.
Good to see you too. I think Debbie gets a lot more credit for that than me.
I think we all owe you all a lot. Just thank you very much, Ethel.
Thank you.
Oh, I can hear birds.
That's my grandmother's bird clock.
It's fine. Perfectly fine. Okay, we're up to 20. Wait a few more minutes.
June, did you get my email?
Yes, you're on. Good.
Yeah. I don't know. I got your email, but then I wasn't on the one. I didn't get the one this morning.
Okay.
So I guess, do you think Bridget just didn't have my email address?
I don't know. I just sent you my link.
I did check because I know Bridget, from the library.
Yeah.
So a lot of times she sends me stuff through through the Brentwood Library one, but I checked there and I didn't get it there either. So if you unless you want me to ask her to add.
No, it's okay. I'll get a printout of it. But you can ask her if you want. You could send her a message.
I'm sorry, I didn't start my video, did I? Okay, all right. Yeah.
Oh, no, Betty can't get on. We're having trouble getting people on here.
Well, hopefully Sandy's on unless she's texting me. Somebody's texting me. Okay, Sandy says she can't get those numbers. She said she couldn't get it with those numbers, but she sent me but I guess she sent me the text. I mean, she sent me the email that Bridget sent this morning, but then she can't get on.
Okay, why don't you forward her the email I sent you this morning with the link on it?
You didn't. Oh, well, I tried to get on with that link, and it.
Oh, and that didn't.
No, and that's what they said. It was not formed right or something. So I couldn't
that was a direct.
Well, that was
yesterday. Can you send her your link? Send her your link.
Okay, send her back the one that she sent me.
Bridget just sent a chat saying that if you click on the hyperlink, you don't need the numbers. That's all she needs to do, Linda. So if she'll open that email back up and just click on the hyperlink.
Linda Sherman, do you have Betty's phone number?
I do.
Could you text her and give her the Zoom link?
I will.
She needs the Zoom link.
Yep.
Hey, Sophia? Sophia?
Total registrations are 53. Excellent.
Okay, yes, I'm in, Sandy. Okay, June, what do you want me to tell her, June?
Marnie can't get in either.
Okay.
You mean the Zoom link is not working?
Is the Zoom link that you sent me, that's what I got in on. So can you not get in with that one?
I didn't do the link. I did the ID and password.
No, just click on the link. Maybe that was it. Click on the link, and don't mess with the passcode.
Okay, I'll tell Marnie that too. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I just clicked on the
Bridget
link.
just posted a chat that people are registering right now. So hang in there. Sorry, Deborah. This is our second Zoom. We're still working out the problems.
June, I re-registered because I registered, I got an acceptance of the registration, but then I was never sent the Zoom link.
The Zoom link comes the day before the event.
Right, but I didn't get it.
You didn't get it from Bridget.
So I re-registered in order to get the Zoom link.
Okay.
And so that may be part of the problem.
Well,
okay.
Did the register let you go through, Lois? Because it wouldn't let me go through this.
Yes. Oh, yes. I got the notice back from the library that my registration was accepted, but I never got the follow-up email with the Zoom link.
Well, I was over there this morning. If I'd known it was going to be an issue, I would have gone in there and talked to her.
Well, I will address that with Bridget. Well, there'll be a follow-up to find out what happened.
Okay.
So let's hang in there. Okay, maybe somebody should sing the Star Spangled Banner. Who here is in the choir?
I did see yesterday. I got on and saw the whole hoopla on the Legislative Plaza, and I got out and had my computer and I rang my bell. Nobody else was out there, but I rang my bell for everybody. Nobody heard it, but I did it at the same time they did it downtown.
Yeah, Wanda's on.
Plaza. That was pretty neat. And I sent it to my Culleoka daughter who's homeschooling her kids now. And I said, okay, get out there and ring your bell and here's all the information about it. So.
This is really neat when you have to scroll over once or twice to see everybody. I love it.
Anyone see the reenactment downtown yesterday online of the vote? No? Oh, well, I'll send the link out for that. That was really good. They had actors and politicians in the House reenacting the vote in 100 years ago today or yesterday.
It was great. I saw it as well. And I just mentioned it in the chat. Send the link. I'd love to share it with friends that didn't get to see it.
Yeah, it was really good.
I cried. It got to me so much.
It was tense, wasn't it? Even though we knew the outcome. They did a good job.
Yeah, please share that. I didn't even know that they were doing that. I'd love to watch it. Thank you so much.
It's good.
June, I just contacted Betty. She said she was not getting in, but I don't think she was using the link that Bridget sent. She didn't seem to find a link from Bridget.
Tell her to check her email. I'll send her mine.
I sent her. I already did. I forwarded it to her and asked her to call me if she still can't get in. Okay?
Okay. Okay. What are we up to?
Okay. Sorry.
32. All right. We're still waiting for some more people to join.
Oh, are you? Oh, I thought.
You're fine.
I was afraid I screwed it all up.
I'll wait a few more minutes, then we'll start. It's almost 10 after.
How many we got?
53 registered, Bridget said.
Wow.
Yep. There's Bridget, 57. She's put in the chat box. Wow. Next month, we're going to have to add more chairs. What do you think, Linda? This is good.
That's a nice problem to have, isn't it?
It is.
Deborah, it's kind of a testament to you too, and your organization, because the interest is there. We want to really thank you for being willing to share, come with it.
Well, I think I'll get started because Deborah's time is valuable too, as much as everybody else's. And I wanted to welcome everyone. My name is June Bond, and I appreciate the fact that you took the time to join the Williamson County League of Women Voters Zoom event this afternoon. And as many of you know, yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. We at the League of Women Voters ask that you honor the legacy of the women who came before us by making your voice heard this year. Please, please make a plan to vote. Our guest speaker today is Deborah Fisher from the Tennessee Coalition for Open Government. After her presentation, she'll answer any questions you may have. Please type your questions into the chat box. My contact info will also be in the chat box if you have any questions regarding the Williamson County League of Women Voters. The Nashville League of Women Voters link will be in the chat box if you're interested in joining the League of Women Voters. The third contact in the chat box will be Debbie Gould from the Nashville League of Women Voters, and she will address any voting questions you may have. Almost done. And I wanted to add that at the end of this, I will send out an email to everybody who registered, and we'll have all those links included in the email. Okay, Linda, would you mind introducing our guest?
I'm happy to introduce to you Deborah Fisher. She has been executive director, as June said, of Tennessee Coalition for Open Government since 2013. And prior to this, she spent 25 years. I find that impossible to believe, but okay, 25 years in the news industry as a journalist, including being one for the Tennessean. In 2016, Deborah became the John Seigenthaler Chair of Excellence in First Amendment Studies, which is part of the Media and Entertainment Division of MTSU. This chair provides a wide array of programming to promote First Amendment awareness and quality journalism, including a lecture series and the online First Amendment Encyclopedia, which sounds very interesting. Deborah, we really thank you for coming, and we appreciate what you will impart to us today. We're eager to hear from you, and please, we can't be heard, but we can show you that we are ready to listen to what you have to say, and thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, Linda and June. I am so excited that there is a chapter forming in Williamson County for the League of Women Voters. I live in Brentwood myself, and so it's good to see in my hometown and my home county that this is happening. Really, really happy about that. The League of Women Voters has, or a representative of the League of Women Voters has been on the board of directors for Tennessee Coalition for Open Government since we began back in 2003. And that is Marian Ott, who some of you, I'm sure on this Zoom call know, and she is, she's actually our treasurer and has served in that role for several years. So she's been a great support and guidance, and also has provided a good link between the organizations on transparency issues, because I know that these are important to the League of Women Voters. So I do have a presentation, and I'm going to share my screen and kind of go through that. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. I'm happy to pause and answer a question too. We can wait until we're done, but if you have something that seems so relevant to what we're talking about, just put it in the chat box or something. I'm happy to kind of fill in. And I think that works well because sometimes a group has particular interest in, and I want to make sure I spend the time on the issues that you're most interested in. So I'm going to now share my screen. Here we go. And share, and let's get to this. Hold on, you don't want to see that. And here we are. Okay. So, this is when I talk to people about open government, and it seems like a concept that everybody supports in concept, but it actually, you do get down to the nitty-gritty of it, and sometimes there are difficulties with getting information, public records, particularly about government. Sometimes you see how a governing body could be more proactive in letting the public know what they're discussing. Some of you who maybe have paid attention to bills going through the legislature may have complained in the past about the difficulties sometimes of understanding, what the amendments are and when they get filed and what they do. The legislature has a great website for tracking bills, but that doesn't mean it's easy for everybody if you are coming to it kind of fresh. I love this quote. I'm a former journalist. I was a journalist for 25 years. And so as a journalist, and as a reporter for some years, but also most of the years I served as some type of editor in newspapers. This was really a cornerstone thought that, an educated society is essential for democracy, and nobody, as Lucy Dalglish says, has demonstrated that an ignorant society is a safe society. Sometimes There is a tendency, if information is not good, or paints someone in a particular light, that perhaps if we hold that back, that will actually be better for society. So just a little bit about TCOG, so you have a sense of who we are. We have actually been working on transparency issues since 2003. That's when we were formed, and we were formed as a nonpartisan coalition. We had a lot of journalists and journalism newsrooms, TV stations, newspapers involved in this. In fact, it was started by Frank Gibson, who was the political editor for the Tennessean. But when it was formed, it was modeled off of a coalition in Virginia. And the idea was it was not just going to be a press association, but we wanted it to be something that involved citizens, because public records, public meetings, all the things we work on in terms of access to government information, it's not just a press issue. I know that the press, I get a lot of helpline calls from members of the press, and because they use these laws a lot, but I get an equal number of calls from citizens who are trying to get access to information. And I would say that that's even more so now than even when I got in this job. And I think it's just that people are trying to get access information, and in some cases, there's been less local news in some places in the state. Anyway, so we formed in 2003, and we immediately did an audit, a right to know audit that measured compliance with the public records laws in Tennessee, and it showed some problem areas, and that helped bring about some changes in the legislature, or some law changes. The lawmakers passed some changes that improved the public records law. After we did the right to know audit, we worked with lawmakers and other interested groups, and some of the key changes were there was an establishment of the Office of Open Records Counsel that exists to answer questions from the public and really largely from government employees about the public records law, but also had some key changes in terms of the process. The changes in 2008 only affected the public records law. There were no changes related to the open meetings law. In fact, the open meetings law in Tennessee is pretty much how it was passed, and it has not been tweaked too often. So in 2013 is when I joined as the new executive director. We actually sort of broadened our board of directors. We added more people, both to try to hit different geographic areas of the state, as well as bring in some additional, we wanted to have, different viewpoints. So we have on our board of directors, you might see in this, you may know Hetty Weinberg. She's in the picture. She's is obviously with the ACLU. We have the Beacon Center on. We really wanted to broaden, and that's something that I think we have to continue to do in the FOI community, because to be honest, FOI has been, most of the FOI community has come out of the newsrooms, and we do need to continue to reach and include more voice and understand more of what other people are wanting, the information that they want from government. Anyway, after I joined, we did some expansion on the website. We expanded, we've always had our helpline, and we did more workshops. We began an email newsletter. Some of you may be signed up for that. And then in 2015, there was an effort to change the law to get rid of the free inspection. So under our public records law, you have to pay for copies, but if you're just going to come in and inspect public records, there can be no charge. There was two lawmakers sought to change that to where you could be charged to inspect records. There was a lot of pushback on that, and the bill did not pass. So in 2015, we published our first little booklet called Keys to Open Government, which is very readable. kind of layman's guide to the public records and open meetings laws in Tennessee. And people who've come from other states, you're probably aware that these are state laws, and so they do vary from state to state. And in fact, there is a national organization of which the Tennessee organization is a member called the National Freedom of Information Coalition, and it is made up of people like me in most all the states who run some kind of organization to promote open government. So we did another public records audit in 2018 that looked at different policies that government entities had developed in terms of the access to records. And some of the biggest problems that we see in terms of public records really is about that access, about how you request records, how long it takes to get them, what is redacted, what you're told about why things are redacted, sort of the hoops you have to jump through, the costs. And so there is a lot there that gets in the way of getting access to information. So that has been a focus of our organization. So the purpose of TCOG is to protect and improve transparency in government so that citizens have the information that they need for self-government. And underlying that, our principles are that informed citizens are vital to a functioning democracy. And also, you know, sunshine does help reduce cronyism and corruption. So these are two important concepts to understand about access to government information. People need to understand why their lawmakers vote the way they do, what they're doing, what they're, you know, to be able to get involved at the right points, to contact their representatives. But also, you know, if, public records, if they are retained properly, you know, should promote, you know, or should at least discourage corruption. So some of the recent things that we've been very active on is in this past legislative session, we worked with a lawmaker who wanted to require government entities to be more transparent by putting more things on their websites. And so he developed a bill. We worked with him, got him some information about what some things that happen in other states. And it basically came down to, he had a lot of things he wanted government entities to put on the website, but it basically came down to really the most important thing that we told him we thought needed to be required to be on website were agendas for upcoming meetings. Now, there was support for that among a lot of lawmakers, but we also had some pushback. There were some government entities who did not want to be required by statute to make their agenda of an upcoming meeting available on the website. This bill was actually in committee and had moved out of subcommittee when the pandemic caused a shutdown. And so it never got to the House full committee, and it never actually started on the Senate side. So that bill did not move. And then when they reopened the session, I did talk with, it was actually Leader William Lambert, who's in Sumner County, who had that bill. And he was considering running it in the June session, but decided not to because there were so many other things that they were working on. Of course, the second session was very limited to the COVID-19 liability and the protesters. So that bill did not get anywhere. We still think it's a critical issue. We feel like that we pared it down enough, or at least, you know, there's been enough, you know, government entities who weighed into that we don't think would be restrictive. But we see that access to agendas is very important. Here in Williamson County, this is probably not an issue for anybody in here. I know Brentwood, Williamson County, you know, they're great. But I will tell you, across the state, it's not like that. And people cannot get access to, or if they get an agenda, it basically has old business, you know, new business, you know, adjourned. So there's some pretty sketchy information out there. And I think that this is we hope that we can continue to work on that. And frankly, in terms of transparency, government entities being more proactive by putting information about what they're doing on websites is a good thing. It's a cultural thing. And we'd like to see more government entities adopt it. And if we can start here, I think that this will be something that will move us toward that. I think I saw Ethel on this call when I started, but anyway, we actually used some research that the state had done maybe 4 or 5 years ago, might have been more than that. A report had been put out by TASER about what government entities, what makes sense for government entities to put on websites, you know, and there are some things that a lot of people like to access, and other things that may be a lot of work to put on the website and not as important. So anyway, moving on. We also wanted better public access to meeting documents. So basically the agenda packet, if anyone on this call has ever been involved in, you know, tracking either proposed legislation at the state level or amendments, or tracking, you know, anything to do at the local level, you know it's important to get access to the actual meeting documents, the board packet that the governing body has, because that's going to have the actual resolution or the actual information like the planning commission might have on exactly, you know, where things are going to go. And, you know, and at the legislature, the amendments are really what you want the access to, because they can totally rewrite a bill. And so if you're tracking an issue, it's very important to have those meeting documents. So that has been also something we have advocated for, and not yet. That was something that got hung up this session as well. Record retention. We actually had some success on this issue. There was an issue out of, sometimes it takes a news event to get a change in law, but there was no statute that required a government entity to retain a record after it's been requested in a public records request. In other words, someone makes a public records request, well, the custodian of that record, there was nothing in state law that prevented the custodian of that record to basically, at that point, you know, shred it. So most states do have something like that in their law. Obviously, that's not the right thing to do, and nobody would recommend that. Anyway, this happened in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. And so in a very high profile event, I won't get into the details, but that prompted 2 Chattanooga lawmakers to put together a bill. And now we have something that requires retention of records that have been requested in a public records request. In addition to that, it actually requires retention of public records requests for at least a year, and the responses of government entities to those requests. So that's important in terms of our work and making sure that, you know, the law is being followed. We also were involved in trying to map out in a very rushed manner the ability of governing bodies to meet electronically during the pandemic. And our purpose in, you know, we worked with some government entities and ultimately made some suggestions to the governor, who included some of our suggestions in his executive order, allowing governing bodies to meet electronically. Our purpose was to try to protect public access, and to the extent we could, public participation. We have made some new suggestions to the governor to alter what he has, as we have sort of lived through this now for about 5 months and have seen sort of how it's played out on the ground. Some governing bodies do this great. Others, there are more hiccups and there have been some frustration. So anyway, so we're offering some ideas, some policy ideas to the governor on that, or have offered them. Another thing that we have worked on during the pandemic, and actually there have been a lot of issues related to access to government information during the pandemic, but an important one initially was just access to the number of cases. This started when initially the health department was not going to reveal the number of positive cases by county. They changed course pretty quick on that. Then there was interest in the number of cases in nursing homes. They weren't going to release that. And right now and they changed course. And right now the issue is what kind of information can the general public know about outbreaks in schools? And every time we've run up against these issues, what you're running into are the requirements in HIPAA primarily that serve to protect someone's personal health information. So, of course, really what people want are de-identified data. They're not actually asking for who has COVID, but that has been an issue about, well, if you have 12 people in a particular school that have COVID, if we say there are 12 people, is that a small enough number that somehow they can be identified because they're absent? So, there are those kinds of issues that have to be worked through. So, but right now there's really not even any state policy requiring schools to even report the information to their local public health department or to the state health department. And so this is just now coming out, so I don't have a lot of concrete information, but from what I understand from some of the news reporting done on it, is that information is not being reported. So I'm not exactly sure why that is, why the government's not tracking that. And then on the flip side, where the hangups are in terms of releasing information that people might want on that. And even if just for purposes of developing public policy or tracking it, just for historical research later. We've also continued to work on exemption reform. So in the public records law, there are literally hundreds of exemptions. That means that everything is assumed in the Tennessee public records law, everything is assumed to be public, open to the public, unless it's exempt by state law. And state law means statutory exemption, but it can also mean, other law, court, certainly court rulings, but there are other laws like the rules of the court that might close certain information. Anyway, the biggest problem with the exemptions are that honestly, the way they get passed is there is a group that wants something confidential for whatever reason. Sometimes a lot of times it's a government entity or maybe a particular county clerk in a particular county is talking to their lawmaker and they think something needs to be confidential, and it can get passed. And sometimes they've slipped through with not enough scrutiny, and there's always a reason to pass an exemption or a stated reason, but sometimes they're so broadly written that they end up closing more than even was intended by that person, or at least closing more than what lawmakers thought they were voting yes on. So our concern in terms of exemptions, and we've been sort of successful on this, is that when an exemption is offered as a bill in the legislature, that there be enough time and it go through such a process that people have a chance to know about what it is. So if you have an interest in it, you can get in front of it and try to explain, what needs to be, maybe how it could be tweaked to only close what really needs to be confidential, or why, or explain why it needs to be open. And we've run into this before on things like autopsy records and things like that. So, and I can speak to anything more in detail. I'm trying to move are y'all seeing the next slide, or do you see a black? Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, okay. So anyway, those are some of the recent things that we've been active on, but in terms of our core programs, the helpline is probably our biggest program, and I get 250, sometimes higher number of calls per year, 250 to 300 depending, and these can be from journalists or citizens. Probably about 60% of my calls are from journalists, 60-65. The remaining are from just regular citizens. But I also get occasional calls from public officials, at least a couple a month, from some county commissioner or city council person who they themselves are having difficulty getting information from the executive branch, so to speak, of the government that that they're on. So I always think that's interesting. People can contact me through phone, emails, and I even get them from Twitter. This was a group, I don't even know if people in Williamson County here know, but they tweeted me, wait, we were removed from this, I think this was a school board meeting, it's been a couple of years ago. And so I've even had people, I just put that up to show you that people have contacted me in the middle of something going on to try to figure out what the law is on something. And I should stop here. I told you I'm a journalist. I have been a journalist. That is my background. I am not a lawyer, but I do know a lot about the public records and the open meetings law, and sometimes can explain it, perhaps because I'm not a lawyer. But we do have lawyers on our board and also other connections. So we do, like I said, I do help a lot of news media. This was an investigative journalist in Johnson City, and it is helpful to reach out to get help, because sometimes as people who are using the public records or open meetings law, you don't really know because you're not doing it all the time. And so I encourage people to call, and I try to give them some of the options, and at least it helps them sort of figure out what to do next. I also do workshops and presentations in newsrooms, on college campuses, to civic organizations like the League. I've given several presentations to various League chapters through the years, Knoxville, Chattanooga here, Nashville, of course, Sumner County. And also I have occasionally talked to government groups like the Association of Planners and things like that. So must be because it's a photo. Okay, another core program is legislative tracking, which I sort of talked about in the advocacy piece. I often give testimony to committees about proposed legislation to try to explain, sort of from perspective of the open government community, what it does. And if we think there are problems with the bill, or we think it's closing something that it was not intended to be closed, if a lawmaker asks us, we will definitely work on that to try to get it narrowed down to what they want to close. We also have try to share that information. I put out every year a legislative report it's gotten more detailed every year. I put one on the website. If you're a member of TCOG, I send you a nice little printed version of it with a little bit more detail. We do research. Like, as I said, we'll work on bills as requested by lawmakers, such as when we worked with Leader Lambert this year on his bill to try to get more information on government websites. But since we were founded in 2003, we have been involved in every major piece of legislation involving public records and open meetings, and often as the lead advocate. So we built up expertise, not just myself as executive director, but just the infrastructure with our board, and which has been helpful. That said, there have been things that have slipped through that we just haven't seen, and I think that's a reflection of some of the transparency problems we have, even with such a good website that at the legislature. We also, though, very important is tracking court cases that relate to either public records challenges or open meetings challenges. We have filed amicus briefs. We have sometimes joined with coalitions on a couple of cases at the beginning level, but we don't actually file legislation ourselves. File lawsuits ourselves. And we don't actually offer that service to the public. But we do track it, and just tracking that information gives us a good sense. For example, we tracked a lawsuit in Knoxville this year that was brought by a sociology professor at UT against the sheriff in Knox County. And she was actually doing some research into their 287G program, which is a program that allows the sheriff's department to detain people who might be suspected of being in the country illegally and work with ICE on that through a contract. And she does various research on that and was completely stonewalled by the Knox County Sheriff in getting any information in any of the records that really she was entitled to under the law. That lawsuit sort of dragged on for several months, and I went over to Knox County at least on 3 different occasions to listen to that. And it was actually incredibly helpful and resulted in us fixing this or suggesting a fix on this one sort of loophole in the law that passed earlier this year. So it's really important to pay attention to what's happening in the courts, because it is in the court system where these laws are enforced. So this is just a picture of some of our stuff. Our Keys to Open Government book, which is actually out of publication. So I just have it online now. Here it is, as a PDF, but you can still get to it. And I do lots of interviews, which is, I was a print journalist, so it was shocking to have to be on TV and do TV interviews. I'm still not good at it. I haven't quite mastered the short quote, but that's what that is. And then Dorothy Bowles is in that one photo, is also on our board, and our board members will do interviews as well. And so these are just some of the people we've helped in different places. You can see I do travel around Greene County, Knox, some newsrooms and so forth. There's the one on the top right is a League of Women Voters event in Chattanooga a couple years ago. So that concludes what I have for, and I am happy to, I'm going to stop my share so I can see everybody again. But, oh gosh, there are questions. I'm happy to answer questions and go deeper into any area that you want me to go into.
Kathy, were you going to ask the questions on behalf of all of us so we don't fall over each other trying to zoom into Deborah? Is that going to work?
Well, they aren't being sent to me. They're being sent to everyone. So if Deborah just wants to pick the one she'd like to answer, she may, or I can.
Okay, I can just go from the chat. And then if anybody wants to just, ask something or say something about the question. So
you have 3 so far.
Yeah, so to what extent does lack of adequate broadband in rural counties affect public access to information? Okay, this has been a huge issue now, actually. So when I was talking about access to electronic meetings, the lack of adequate broadband to be able to do a meeting like this with your governing body has been difficult, not just for the public in terms of patching in, but also we've noticed that one county, a county commissioner may not have the broadband that he or she needs to be visible in a governing body meeting held on Zoom. And we think that's a problem. We think that, we have advocated that if you're going to have an online meeting, an electronic meeting, that people should be visible and they should have their video on the whole time if you're a member of the governing body, because that would be the most similar experience that people would have as if they were there in person. So what we have seen is that a lot of people, just like, in this meeting, if I were just here, I might flip my video off if I were just watching, so I can go get a Diet Coke or something. I don't know. But you don't want the members of your governing body to do that. And sometimes all of us, I see we have our names on here, but sometimes they don't even have their name appear on the Zoom, or maybe they're using a different computer or whatever. So there have been hiccups, but the access to broadband has been difficult in those areas, both from the standpoint of the governing body being able to, what I feel, adequately conduct a meeting electronically online, which everybody can hear and see. And then again, for the public to be able to attend. Before the executive order, the only way that you could have an electronic meeting, it was limited. First of all, it was limited to only certain types of entities, and it was limited to certain situations that are in law. And really, it was limited mostly just to state agencies. There is one exception for school board members, but it has to meet certain, just a couple, certain very limited conditions, and it can't be everybody. But previously, if a governing body met electronically, in some cases you had to still have a physical quorum, meaning you had to have, most people there. And in cases where a physical quorum was not required, you actually had to have a physical place where a member of the public could come and watch the video, like at a library. So that sort of got over the broadband inequity, that you see in rural areas, because if there was going to be that, you would have to have a physical place for someone to go. So it is an issue. It's definitely an issue. And at least their access to governing body meetings that are held electronically. Does that answer the question? That was an Ethel question. Okay. Debbie, why are we having problems finding out if public schools have COVID cases? Don't schools already need to report communicable diseases to the public health department? I know that FERPA does not prevent them from reporting communicable diseases to the public health department. And in fact, there is guidance on that on the federal government's website that specifically says that a public health, that a school district can notify the public health department. But I don't know that there is a requirement, and that's interesting, Debbie. I don't know if there is a requirement, like I guess on certain types of diseases that have to be reported, or if that's statutory and that's why they have to report it, or if it's in the Board of Education regulations or the health department. That's a good question. I have no idea about that, but I do know that there's nothing that prevents them from reporting both the name of the student. Of course, the name of the student would never be able to be released to the public, but also just the data surrounding that, like age and that kind of data that would be helpful. And is anybody here a teacher or in education or know the answer to that by chance? No. Okay. But I do think it's as I mentioned earlier, I think that schools might be sharing information with parents, but I don't think we're seeing a consistent roll up of the numbers anywhere, at least yet. How are other states handling the reporting of school COVID-19 outbreaks? It's just all over the board. Even in Tennessee, it's all over the board. I guess the question really is, are other states at the state level, requiring that reporting? I don't have the answer to that, but that is a good question that hopefully, will get answered short in the next, in reporting going on now. Another question, are there standard open records protocols for phone meetings by government entities, such as the speaker identifying himself? Okay, this has been a problem. This has been a problem. And, I think some of the more, typical governing bodies like a county commission or a city council, they represent a particular, people vote for them in their district a lot of times. And so they know a lot of people, and sometimes there's actually more pressure for them to do it right. So, a lot of the county commissions, not all of them, many city councils are doing okay, but you tend to run in some of these other entities like an election commission, which I imagine like this group would be interested in your election commission, or other utility boards, that kind of thing, maybe holding meetings by phone only. And that is allowed in the executive order. When the executive order first went into place, we actually thought that was a good idea because we didn't think everybody could hold video meetings, and we didn't think that government should shut down in these local areas just because they couldn't meet the open meetings law. So, there needed to be some give there. But we've been 5 months along, and the executive order said that there is a requirement to provide live access to a meeting, and you have to make reasonable efforts to get that. And if you can't get it, then it gives you another option to have just record it and make the recording available later. So what we're seeing is, I don't think the reasonable efforts are being made. Now, to the question of audibility, it's not mentioned specifically in the executive order, but it does refer to the Open Meetings Act, which requires audibility in a meeting. So the executive order doesn't outline you have to identify yourself. It doesn't go into detail about what the protocol is, but in the other statutes related to electronic meetings, it does require that before every vote, for every vote there has to be a roll call vote. So everyone, maybe not when they're talking, but when they vote, has to be by names. You know, Commissioner so and so voted yes. So that is the audibility requirement, in that you have to be able to understand what's being said, and then a roll call vote. And those are really the only things. But I agree. I mean, I think as we've gone through on these electronic meetings, the public likes them. The public, it surprised me, the public likes to be able to attend this electronically. They like the option. They like to be able to go in person, but they like the option of being able to watch it from home. However, until we can get these things right, where people know, you know, the problems that we've found are you don't know who's talking, you can't hear them, they step away. There are a lot of things that are not being done well, and those things need to get cleaned up if this is gonna be going on for any kind of long haul. And I'm not really sure that it should, but question is, okay, one question came, do I ever get a call from a whistleblower who wants help in getting their concerns out, and what support does TCOG offer in that case? I do get calls from, sometimes I have gotten calls from people within government who have concerns, but I don't know if I'd call them a whistleblower. So we aren't really set up to like publish documents, you know, maybe that were provided to us, you know, the Pentagon Papers, you know, we're not really set up to do that kind of thing. But what support I do offer if I get someone is to try to connect them with a local journalist or other people in that area who maybe could help them. But more often the types of calls I get are people who are concerned about a particular thing and they just are needing some advice on how to proceed to try to either get publicity about it or to press the point, either through litigation or something like that. So no, these rules, the question I have is, does this apply to a homeowners association? And no. The public records and the open meetings laws only apply to government entities and governing bodies. And so a homeowners association would not be it's a governing body, but it's not a government governing body. It does not, I actually get that question a lot. I get a lot of calls. Now there is a whole section of the code, the Tennessee code related to homeowners associations. And I try to point people to that. But the public records laws do not apply. Now, if an HOA, you know, I always tell people if they're interacting with a government entity in some way and they're giving, you know, emails or reports, or they have to file documents with, you know, a government entity, all of that, because that is received by government is a public record. The definition of public record in the Public Records Act is essentially any, you know, document in any form. It could be an audio, it could be a piece of paper, it could be an electronic file that is made or received by government during the course of business is a public record and subject to the public records laws. So sometimes there can be a private entity that's interacting and their records become public through that. Let's see, I did get a Trump question, but I don't know that I can answer that. Why can't Trump be forced to provide evidence? Why can't Trump be forced to provide evidence of mail voter fraud? That does kind of go beyond maybe For one, I don't do, I really focus on the state public records laws. I do know some about the federal FOIA laws, but I don't know that that is something that is, I don't think I can answer it, but I at least wanted to recognize that that question was there. I don't know why. I mean, he is, you know, the executive, and so I will say this, that one of the expansions that we've seen in the executive branch is the use of the deliberative process privilege. And this privilege, the concept behind it is that the communications at the highest level of government, say the governor and his, and maybe either his members, his closest advisors, essentially. Let's say it's not an attorney or something, but someone else, because attorney might be covered under attorney-client privilege. But anyway, the deliberative process can shield those communications with the closest advisors. And the idea is that there needs to be enough room for that highest executive to be able to have frank and candid conversations in developing policy. So that is that's a privilege that is recognized in Tennessee. Certainly it's recognized at the federal level. I mean, there's a deliberative process case back in the Nixon, I don't know if in the Nixon tapes, where that was a deliberative process. The access to those tape recordings in the Oval Office was something that in the prosecution, you know, that the Justice Department was trying to get access to, and there was a privilege asserted of deliberative process, and that the judge ended up weighing that privilege and sort of the need in this litigation to access those. But that is what the deliberative process is, and we've seen really actually a pretty big expansion. I've seen that used. I've heard it used by the by the governor, by Governor Lee's administration, actually, in multiple times actually in the past couple years. So I haven't seen it used so much at the local level. I've been watching for that. Because I'm not sure it applies at the local level. We know for sure it applies at the governor's level because there was a court case on it, actually when involving Governor Bredesen. So, and Governor Bredesen prevailed, and that deliberative process is in a Court of Appeals decision now, the recognition of that. Where do you get your funding? So we get our funding through memberships and donations, and which are really the same thing. There's not really an advantage of being a member, except that I send you some things in print that you otherwise would get online. And most of our funding, or I would say a large portion of our funding, does come from news organizations or like associations like the Tennessee Press Association and the Broadcasters Association are two big funders of our organization. We have some individual news organizations who have been givers since the beginning. We have individuals who are not associated with the news media who are givers, and that's actually a pretty big part of our funding too, that maybe give at the $1,000 level or $500 level, or even I have, you know, a pretty good chunk of people that give $35 a year, and they've sent it, you know, they sent it for $35 a year for 7 years. So that's sort of our entry level membership that we ask people if they feel like they can give and support us. So that is, that's where our funding comes through. So it is a mixture of like there's some law firms, a mixture of media related, citizen related, and some organizations. The League of Women Voters is a member. They give an amount every year as well. How can a candidate be vetted for his or her willingness to adhere to true transparency, openness in government? Well, I think you have to ask them about their position on proposed legislation. And, you know, I do a legislative report every year about what passed and what didn't. And some of those things may be more important to you. And so you can ask them about those, like, would you vote for a bill that required government entities to have agendas on websites? That, I mean, if you like that, which we do, that we think that's pretty basic. You know, that would be an indicator. And also, you know, their willingness to sometimes carry legislation, you know, or be able to speak about it, you know, independently. I think, you know, the legislature, it's difficult. You know, sometimes bills just sail through pretty quickly. So, you know, it sometimes takes someone, you know, some, you know, interest and courage to stand up and raise questions about legislation. So, but I think you have to look at, have they carried anything that is related to open meetings or public records, or have they advocated for improving things? Like even with the, you know, I really think an improvement that needs to be made at the legislature is the ability to access the proposed amendments to the bills before right now you can't get them. The public really essentially can't get them until after they're adopted in the committee, not even in the subcommittee. Now, the way you get them is you call the lawmaker's office and you ask for it, okay? So you can get them, but they're not posted on the website. And they did try a process where they have this page separate that you can look at the amendments after they've been adopted by the subcommittee. But even that is not 100%. I've tracked that, and they aren't always there. And they're certainly not there on the page. I'm going to share my screen one time if you guys don't mind. So I think this is important and important for this group. And let's see if I can get to this. But they certainly aren't on this page right here. Like this is a bill that recently passed. Oh, and look, we of course Johnson and Lamberth carried it. It's an it was an administration bill, so I don't know how much, you know. But this was the bill that that I was interested in this from our First Amendment work. But this is a bill that increased the penalties on people who would camp at the Capitol. And the intention was to really stop some of the lawlessness or some of the things that were happening up there. But in essence, it made, you know, spending the night on state property, like a state park that's not meant for camping, to become a felony. And so the penalties really were increased. But okay, so here I want you to see the amendment page. Okay, now if you were just a regular person and you're like, okay, something has been transmitted to the governor for action, right? What? It would be so difficult for you to go through here and figure out which combination of amendments have been passed. Come over here, open them all. Let's just open one of them. And then compare what you're looking at to the actual, well, this is not a good one. It's too easy. Hold on. Compare what you're looking at to the actual, you know, statute. Well, this one didn't pass. This one didn't pass. I just know that because that's a Democrat. Let's see. But that's the only reason I would be guessing. And let's just, maybe the first one. Okay, here we go. Here's an example. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to pull up the current Tennessee code, look at how this changes that. And these are long, you know, and they reference lots of different parts of the code. Well, in some states, the bill can't look like this. It has to have the current language of the statute and basically redlined what the changes are. So it's easier for the public to understand. In addition to that, as I mentioned, it is not entirely clear here. I would challenge any layperson who doesn't look at this just day in and day out to figure out which of those amendments and which combination of those amendments passed. So, you know, I think journalists even have trouble with that. And that it should not be that hard. So there are reasons it's done like this, and there are certain rules that the legislature has to follow. So I'm not saying that, and we have a pretty good website. I mean, you can watch a video right here, and there's a lot that you can do with this website. But the truth is there need to be improvements here. So I think the question was going back to how do we really know, if our lawmaker is, committed to transparency? For one, are they doing anything to try to fix these things? Or do they basically say there's no problem? And the second thing you should ask is my lawmaker constantly filing what are called caption bills? So a caption bill is a bill that when it's filed, it doesn't have the actual legislation. It's like a placeholder legislation. And you'll see these, and they are like, they have just really strange things in their language. And I might be able to find one real quick. But at any rate, they aren't what they are. And so the first time the public even knows what that bill is doing, if you're just watching it, is you can listen to when it's presented. But since the caption is replaced with an amendment to the bill, you won't even see that amendment on the website until after it's adopted by the committee. So all you see on the website for the longest time is the caption bill, and it doesn't have that information. So while this website, there are some really superior things about our website compared with other states, there's some things that need to be improved. And if you're wondering, about your lawmaker in Williamson County, and there's some good lawmakers in our representing us. I live here too, so I know some of them. How willing are they to take this on? These kinds of things on would be a question I as a constituent might ask. I hope that's helpful.
At this time, I don't know if there are more questions in the chat box, but we are probably at a time that we need to close. And I can guess that we could stay here a long while asking you more questions, Deborah. But for now, I guess we have to call it to a halt. June, are we ready to close the meeting? And once again, we'd like to invite all of you to the September 16th Zoom meeting with the Williamson County League of Women Voters, and hope that you can join us then. And we'll be speaking, right, Betty, with Chad Gray, our election commissioner in Williamson County. Thank you again, Deborah, for coming today. And this is a great information to know about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Phil. I'm sorry I went over. Thank you.
No, it's not, no problem.